Morning, year six. How are you all doing? I hope each and every one of you is doing well. Today we have a very interesting lesson. As you can tell from the title, it's going to be a lesson where we compare life in Britain and life in Sudan in 1910 to be exact. But before that, let's review what we studied last week. So, we know that Muhammad Ahmed bin Abdullah was the revolutionary leader who revolted against the Egyptians, and we know that he named himself Al Mahdi. His soldiers were called Ansar, which meant followers. They were Al Mahdi's soldiers who followed his orders and tactics. And with the help of Osman Digna, who was another revolutionary from the east, Al Mahdi united Sudan against foreign rule. He was known to be the only foreign commander to break a British infantry square. Obviously, this was a big deal because the British had quite strong of an army, and that's how they managed to conquer half the world. And then we also know that Al Mahdi's forces killed General Charles Gordon, who was the British appointed governor of Khartoum at the time. But soon after Gordon's death, Al Mahdi died of illness, and his successor, Abdullah bin Muhammad, took over and was known as the Khalifa. And then another British general, Lord Horatio Kitchener, was sent to avenge Charles Gordon, and the British and Egyptian forces overthrew the Mahdist government. Now, life in Britain and Sudan in 1910. Well, we know that Sudan was a colony of Britain with an Egyptian and Turkish government. We know that Sudanese people were generally oppressed, and many of them, unfortunately, were slaves. Now, we're going to read an autobiography of a slave from what is now South Sudan who was freed under Gordon's rule and was taken to the UK. Life of a Sudanese slave. The diary of a Sudanese slave, Hatashil Masha Kadish, who later on changed his name to Salim Charles Wilson. Now, Hatashil Masha Katish was a boy from what is now called South Sudan. His father was chief of one of the Gok Dinka tribes, but during a raid, Salim had been captured and sold into slavery. In his autobiography, The Life Story of Hatashil Masha Katish, he describes his experience after being sold from one Arab master to another. My new master proved to be a creature who might fitly be called a demon. To make me wretched was his greatest delight, nor cared he what methods he employed to attain his end. At one time he would make me fight boys much bigger than myself, against whom I stood no chance of success. Then, when I had been beaten, he would take me off to some lonely place and ask me why I had let the other boy conquer me. In 1880, a missionary called Charles Wilson, whose father was the vicar in Pavenham, a small village in southern England, brought Salim back to the UK after he was freed by forces serving under British General Charles Gordon. In his autobiography, Salim wrote, "And so I decided on a very daring step. I decided that, if I could, I would enter the service of these white men. And eventually, sure enough, out of a number of applicants, I was selected. When I learned that, eventually I should be taken to the white men's country called England, I was startled, but not daunted. Although I frequently asked myself questions as, would these white men treat me badly, and sometimes, would they eat me when they had me in their own country?" Salim attended the village school in Pavenham in order to learn to read and write. In his autobiography, he wrote, "Everybody in the village was kind to me, and many of the good people gave me money. Generally speaking, the lads of Pavenham were kind to me, but of course they could not resist having their bit of fun out of me, most of which was comparatively harmless. Sometimes, however, it wasn't so innocent. They would try to get rough with me, but when it came to that, I was more than a match for them. While at school, Salim learned to speak English with the help of his classmates who would hold up objects for him and ask him to name them. Sometimes I was wide of the mark, he admits in his autobiography, and then, amid roars of laughter, I had to try and try again until the difficulty was conquered. I endeavored to master the alphabet, but I'm afraid the strange noises I made as I grappled with letter after letter little tended to the quiet of the school. Not even the sight of a cane on the master's desk sufficed to check the laughter I provoked. After the death of her husband in 1881, Salim accompanied Mrs. Wilson to Nottingham. He attended the he attended the Cliff College, a missionary training institute, and continued to live in England, much in demand as a preacher and speaker. He authored The Ethiopia Valley, the story of the people called the Dinkas, edited by William Ingledow Harbord, and an autobiography, I Was a Slave, in 1939. He was baptized in August 1882 and given the name Salim Charles Wilson. He married and later kept a general store in Scunthorpe, a town in northern England. Now, it's a very interesting story, and it kind of gives us hope that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, even though he suffered here, being a slave, sold from one Arab master to another. Once he got there, he started a brand new life filled with hope. Now let's look at the daily life of a middle-class child in Britain and Sudan. This is the comparison. The picture you see on the left is of Sudan, and the picture on the bottom right is a picture of England in 1910, I believe. So the daily life of a Sudanese child. Obviously, these events are not in the correct order. This is going to be part of your homework. You're going to order them. Make fire with charcoal to heat water. Go to work weeding or digging or looking after cattle. Drink tea or coffee, often with fresh milk. Clean the house and yard. Wake up, wash hands, feet, and face, and pray. Now, a British child would help wake up and dress younger brothers and sisters, go to school for 1 or 2 hours in the evening, go to work, perhaps selling in the street or to a factory, wake up, put on clothes, no bathing, heat water for tea over fire. So, as you can clearly tell, they're not in the correct order. I want you to write them in the correct order and take a picture and upload it to me on Seesaw. Now look at this. If you think that life was hard here for a Sudanese child, it was just as hard in Britain for a British child, because they had child labor, meaning they made little children work. They had to do like hard labor, difficult work, long hours, dangerous work, mostly in factories. But here in Sudan, they would work as farmers, or they would keep the cattle. So either way, it wasn't an easy childhood. Imagine if you were, alive during that time. I'm pretty sure your life would be completely different, and you wouldn't be as spoiled as you are. Right now, you don't have to work. You just go to school and then you go back home. But imagine these little kids had to work for long hours on end. So you should always be thankful for what you have. Now, your homework, number 1, is to rearrange the events in the daily life of a middle-class child in Britain and Sudan. The slide just before the picture, as they are jumbled up. Number 2, answer the following questions about Salim Charles Wilson in a paper and upload your answers to Seesaw. I want you to write question A, question B, question C, and then write the answer below. Do you think Salim preferred his life in England or Sudan? Find evidence from the text. Do you think Salim was upset when the boys at school laughed at him? Why or why not? I want you to write your opinion here. And finally, what do you think might have been the greatest challenges for Salim when moving to live in England? Give me three answers, all right? Um, I want you guys to upload your work to Seesaw. Don't just write done. I need to see your work, all right? So this is it. I'll see you guys next lesson. Bye.